All right. How is everybody doing? People of
Doing well.
Attica Correctional Facility, Collins Correctional Facility, Groveland Correctional Facility. This is DVD number 4 for the season Nonviolence. And we only doing 4 this year. I mean, last year we did 6. We're gonna do 4 this year. I mean, we got Bianca with us like last time and Arun Gandhi with us also. So we're gonna start this off. So look at this DVD as being, we're closing out the season for nonviolence. And when we think about violence, we always talk about physical violence. And so I'm gonna ask Arun this question right here. What are some aspects of nonviolence that are beyond just responding to physical violence? So after Arun answers that question, I'm gonna kick it over to you also, Bianca. Go ahead, Arun. What are some aspects of nonviolence that are beyond just responding to physical violence?
Well, yeah, it's a very good question. Thank you for asking it. And, the thing that I learned about violence is that my grandfather told me when I was living with him that the only way you will understand nonviolence is first understanding the extent and depth of violence that exists in society, in all of us. And so to make me understand this, he made me draw a tree of violence, just as we do a family tree with violence as the grandparent and physical violence and passive violence as the 2 branches. And then every day I had to examine and analyze everything that I had experienced during the day. Things that I may have done to other people or people may have done to me, or, things that I may have read about. Whatever it was, all of that had to be analyzed and examined and put in their appropriate places on that tree. Now, if it is physical violence, the kind of violence where we use physical force against one another, fighting and killing and beating and rape and all of these things where physical force is used against people, that would go under physical violence. But then we practice a lot of violence where we don't use any physical force. And yet we hurt people directly or indirectly. And there are hundreds and hundreds of ways in which we do this. And it's become so much a part of our life and a part of our attitudes that we don't even realize we are committing violence there. So the easiest way for me to find out whether this was passive violence or not was to ask myself a simple question. If somebody were to do this to me, would it hurt me or would it help me? And if we come to the conclusion that it would hurt me, then that would be passive violence. So when I started doing this introspection and exercise, I was amazed that within a few months, I was able to fill up the whole wall in my room with acts of passive violence. And that could be everything from discrimination, looking down on people, wasting food, wasting resources, throwing things away because we can afford it. We have a lot of it, we just waste it and throw it away. Accepting poverty in society and not being affected by the pain of other people who have to go through all kinds of pain to live and make a living. All these are forms of passive violence. And when I did this and I filled up the whole wall with passive violence, that is when grandfather explained to me the connection between the two. He said, we commit passive violence all the time, every day, consciously and unconsciously, and that generates anger in the victim, and the victim then resorts to physical violence to get justice. So it is passive violence that fuels the fire of physical violence. So logically, if we want to put out that fire of physical violence, we have to cut off the fuel supply. And since the fuel supply comes from each one of us, we have to be the change we wish to see in the world. If we don't change our attitudes, if we continue to commit all these passive violence all the time, then we are never going to be able to control the physical violence. Now, we can do simple things and we can do profound things, depending on what people's resources are. But simple thing is like building a good relationship. That is a very important part of philosophy of nonviolence, building relationships with people. Today, because of the kind of lifestyle we have created in the world, which is based on materialism, and materialism has made us selfish and self-centered, greedy. So we are always thinking about ourselves. How can I get the biggest share of the pie? How can I get the best things that are available? I don't care about what happens to other people. We even teach this to our children. When we tell them that they have to be successful in life and get to the top by any means possible, don't worry about anybody else. Just think about yourself and get to the top. And that's a greedy, selfish way of looking at life. And we become part of that greed and selfishness. But in nonviolence, we are required to build a relationship where we can feel other people's pain. We can feel other people's difficulties and do something about it. So if we start building relationships that are based on respect, understanding, acceptance, and appreciation, then we start practicing nonviolence in our daily life. Now, we have to respect ourselves and respect each other and respect our connection with all of creation. We have again brought up in the sense that we are independent individuals. We can do whatever we like and it's nobody's business. And we all do that. And we are not independent individuals. We are interdependent, interconnected, and interrelated. What happens to one happens to the other eventually. And it just goes on and on. So we have to respect that connection. And when we respect that connection, then we will understand who we are and what we are and why are we here on earth. We are not here by accident. We are not here just to pass the time of day from birth to death. We are here to make a difference in this world. Each one of us is here to make a difference, a positive difference in the world, and work towards it. And we can make a positive difference in the world only when we make a positive difference in ourselves. And when we come to that understanding, then we will be able to accept each other as human beings and not look at each other by the labels we have put upon them. Today we have labels for everything, gender labels, religious labels, philosophical labels, economic labels. We put all these labels on people and identify them only by those labels. We've got to remove all those labels. We are all human beings. Whatever our color, whatever our shape, whatever our race, wherever we come from, we are all human beings and we are all part of a human family. And when we are able to accept that kind of attitude towards human beings, then we will understand our own humanity. So this is the basis on which relationships are built. And when we build that kind of relationship there. When we respect other people, then we naturally have compassion for that person. We don't want to hurt that person. We don't want to do anything that would make that person unhappy in that way. And so our entire outlook changes, and we begin to practice daily, nonviolence in daily life. So I want all of you, I'm challenging all of you to do this introspection in your private capacity. Put down on a paper or wherever you can, in a notebook or whatever it is available to you, build that tree of violence. And you will be amazed to see how much violence each one of us practices. You know, we tend to point a finger at other people all the time, but we forget that there are three fingers pointing back at us. So let's not point a finger at somebody and say they are to blame. Let's look at ourselves three times more deeply and try to change our own attitudes and practice nonviolence in our daily life. Only then we will be able to control the physical violence that exists in society. Until then, we can do whatever we like. We will never be able to control physical violence if we continue to feed the fuel physical violence through our own actions. So in conclusion of the season, again, as Jonathan said, the season may end for this year, but it doesn't mean that we stop practicing nonviolence. It is something that we have to continue to do every day of our life. From morning till evening, you'll see there are challenges all the time, but we have to overcome those challenges, and that is how we become better human beings. That is how our life becomes meaningful, and we can be able to contribute positively to society. So with these few thoughts, I want to say goodbye to you for this year. And I hope if I'm still alive, we'll see you again next year. And by then, I hope you will be a few notches better than you were this year. Thank you very much. Jonathan or Bianca, want to go ahead?
Well, I felt like a sense of mic drop after everything you just said. I almost don't want to add anything. I just want to leave it at that. You said just some really beautiful, impactful things. Thank you for that, Arun. I think when I want to share what came up for me when you talked and shared your perspective, Arun, about the tree and how your grandfather made you draw, kind of like the family tree of violence. And I thought really about a forest and the many trees in a forest, and how trees in especially ancient forests are so interconnected through the roots, and they actually really are serving one another. And if one tree is more weakened or harmed, the whole root system comes together to nurture that tree. And I feel like when I think about anything that goes beyond physical violence, I feel also more so about me as a tree standing on my own roots, and how important it is to also really ask myself what hurts me, what harms me, and what supports me. Um, how it's just incredible how incredibly what kind of bullies we are towards ourselves all the time or often, and how we talk to ourselves. So when you talk about the relationships, and when I think about all the trees in the forest, I think about the relationship to myself, to ourselves. And yeah, as we continue to practice, as we continue to learn, as we continue to grow, as we continue to fail, just to be really extra tender and gentle and forgiving with yourself in the process. Um, yeah, that's all I want to add. And I'm super grateful I got to be part of the season virtually this year. And I continue to imagine all the faces that I'm talking to. It's really hard to be so disconnected. I'm also really hoping I get to join next year again in person. I hope you all stay safe and healthy out there, and nourished. And um, yeah, I'm gonna pass it to you, Jonathan. Wondering what you're thinking. What's alive for you right now, and what you wanna add?
Yes, thank you, Arun and Bianca. So I'm thinking about, I tend to just focus on like physical violence. And I'm always reminded when I'm around a room and we start talking that no, there's other forms of violence too. And I tend to practice them more often than I care to admit. And so when he first taught me about passive violence, I was like, man, I've been doing that a lot since I've been home. I mean, what stands out for me is that I had bought this bicycle online. It was like a folded bicycle. So I was like, oh yeah, man, it's folded up. I'm gonna be riding this bicycle. I rode the bicycle twice and I wanted to throw it in the Genesee River. It was just a horrible purchase, and I paid over like $200 for it. I ended up giving the bicycle to my brother. But that was what happened was that just told me is that I've been just wasting by just spending money on things I just didn't need. I just wanted these things. I was just spending just money, and then I'd be like, why did I buy this? I don't even want it no more. And it's like that, like environmental waste. Like, what are you doing with this, man? You're just buying it just to throw it out. And so, yeah, so now I'm more conscious of that. And my consciousness is I save a little bit more money now because I'm not just buying stuff that I don't need no more, or buying stuff and wondering like what the heck I bought this for. And then I'm starting to be mindful of like the verbal violence that I be doing. A friend of mine be telling me that I have no filters. I was like, what the hell do you mean by that? She is probably thinking, see, that's what I'm talking about. You have no filters. You just be saying stuff. But I mean, I'd be thinking that I'm not being violent. I'm not like being aggressive towards her. I'm not trying to like cuss her out or harm her, but just being mindful that what I be saying, the tone of voice I use is also like a form of violence. And then like the violence I do towards myself. There's so many different ways to look at violence than physical violence. It just reminds me, like, man, if I'm not doing physical violence, in my mind, I'm like, I must be doing great, but that's not the case. This is environmental violence. It's all types of violence. And I'm just so grateful to be around people like Bianca in a room that can remind me of things like that. You know, I drive, I'm trying to be mindful that, you know what, don't drive that much, especially when it's a beautiful day. I could either walk or ride my bike. I love riding bicycles and walking. And then when I am driving, just don't leave the car idling. And then, you know, and just running and all that's just going up in the atmosphere. Environmental violence is something that a lot of people practice. And I'm just trying to do my part by not practicing that. So yeah, not wasting food. If I buy food, eat it. Don't put it in the refrigerator and just let it go spoil just to throw it out. You know, so I mean, there's a lot of different ways that I've been practicing violence. And the season nonviolent reminds me to start looking at those ways that I be just carelessly doing violence and not even thinking about it. And one of the things I tend to practice that has helped me with physical violence and really just all types of violence is building relationships. And so during the season for nonviolence, I do a talking circle every Tuesday from 12 o'clock until 1 o'clock on Zoom. And the people that show up, like a different amount of people each week, new ones, different ones, they always share a story about how they're practicing nonviolence. And I don't learn so much from them. And some of the people I'm starting to see the faces and over again. I mean, like we kind of know each other now. I'm also involved in like this community project where they're trying to stem the violence in their area. So you know, so I saw right then, you know what, I participate in that. So I went to 3 meetings now. So it's me like sitting around with other people and we're just talking about We're just talking about issues that affect our community. And one of the things that, well, first of all, prior to me going to these meetings, I didn't know none of these people. So then once I started going to the meetings and we started talking, I was like, all right, some brothers I never even met before, but you know what? Now I have a relationship with them. And at one time, it was a painful discussion that I was a part of because we was just talking about the community, what be happening in the community. And one of the brothers said that, yeah, man, I don't see how all these murderers and rapists be coming back to the community. I was like, whoa, hold on, man. This how this brother feel about this. I said, hold on, man. I came back to the community and I'm out of jail, man. What's going on with that? But you know what? Now me and the brother, we talk, me and the brother cool. I mean, I'm like, you know what, prior to this, if I would have just heard him make that statement, I'd have been like, man, forget this dude. I'm not saying nothing to him. But because of the setting and because we was having a discussion about that, I was able to hear his side of it. And like Arun was saying earlier, like just feel his pain and frustration. I wasn't hearing like he was condemning me. I didn't take his statement personal. I was just saying a person that's frustrated, that wants to do something about his community, and he thinking wrongfully that men coming out of prison is the reason why the community is the way it is. I'm like, brother, that's not the case. But now me and the brother has a relationship. So some of the things that I'm gonna try to continue to do, that's gonna help me not only grow as a person and learn as much as possible, is just continue to like build relationships with people. Try to build relationships. Doesn't matter what color you are, what gender you are, what you into, not even your views and perspectives, because either at the end of the day, like we were saying in other DVDs, you can make perceived enemies your friends. And so, I mean, if I continue to practice this and stop buying stuff that I don't need, I think I'm gonna be all right, man. I'll be like continuing to live this nonviolent life that I'm living right now. And so the question that we asked, I want to also, you brothers, just ask, yourselves that question. What are some aspects of nonviolence that are beyond just responding to physical violence? Think about what you heard here. Answer that question for yourself. Get in some groups, talk about it, man. Answer that question. I mean, what else? Because we know that violence isn't just physical violence. There's many forms of violence. So start talking about that. But then also ask yourself, what am I taking with me from this year's season of nonviolence? Because we know the 64 days isn't the end of us practicing nonviolence. We take that all through the year. We take that all 365, 12 months a year. And hopefully the pandemic will like subside. People will feel a lot more confident in their health and things like that. And we'll be able to come in next year and actually talk to you about that and put faces to some of these letters and all that we've been receiving for the last couple of years. And we hope to God that Arun is still with us, because I know he's looking forward to being with us and he can come on up into the prison and talk to all you men. So, I mean, it has been great. I mean, at least from my perspective, to be able to do these DVDs, to still stay connected during the season of nonviolence. And I also want to thank the people at Collins Correctional Facility for the first time being a part of the season of nonviolence. I hope that this is not just the first and only time. We hope that you also join the season of nonviolence in the near future, and it's impacting everybody's lives, not just the incarcerated people, but the incarcerated people at the Collins Correctional Facility also. So I just want to, before I close out, to say, if Bianca and Arun, do you have anything you want to say?
No, I think I've said enough. Bianca, maybe.
No, I'm just grateful for the both of you, for everyone who is listening and participating. And yeah, happy we're all on this journey together. Yeah, thank you so much to everyone.
So in conclusion, I want to also thank, because you men that are viewing these DVDs may not know this, but there's a lot of people behind the scenes that make these recordings and everything possible. to bring it to you men to listen to us. So I want to thank them also. And you know who you are. And then also the administrations of Attica, Collins, and Groveland that approved these DVDs and put them on so that you men could watch them also. I want to thank you also. So for the season of Nonviolence 2022, hey man, see you next year, man. Keep on living and practicing nonviolence.